It's just a mass of dead brown bits. And then a few weeks after that, the lovely green shrubs have died as well. And you've actually got a beautiful looking house with a piece of desert in front of it. But that's nothing compared with what's around the back, because what's around the back is a mosquito infested swamp. Because the chlorine in the swimming pools evaporates after about 5 or 6 days, and mosquitoes start breeding in them. And it's not anyone's job to empty them, so more and more and more you get pools full, not of happy yuppie swimmers and their brats, oh no, just mosquitoes, which in Los Angeles now carry Nile fever, which has killed 6 people this summer in Los Angeles from mosquito bites from infested swimming pools. So society and the civilization suddenly starts to go down the plug hole. For all sorts of... Who on earth would have thought that one of the side effects of the subprime mortgage disaster would be people dying of Nile fever in Los Angeles, in multi-million-dollar homes, because they're next door to a swamp. Quite astounding stuff. That's what's happening. The other end of North America, I was in Michigan. That was the particularly rowdy argument with all those lefties in that big lecture hall. If you've seen it on YouTube. And amazing. Now, the middle of Detroit has been, as Arthur Kemp shows in his book, a howling wilderness now, literally with trees and bushes growing up and deer roaming around within half a mile of the fantastic skyscrapers in the very centre of Detroit. It's been a wilderness for 10 years now and getting worse. But it's not just Detroit now. In Michigan as a whole, it's a huge state. It was the powerhouse of America's industrial might in the last century, our century almost, the one only just gone. It was the powerhouse of all of that. It was, Detroit was Motown, it was Motortown, it was the biggest centre of industrialism in the entire world. And in that place now, 1 in 10 people are on, not just state benefits, they're on emergency food handouts from charities. 1 in every 10 people. And it's not just the inhabitants of the darker parts of Detroit, shall we say. No, it's not them at all. They're all so high out of their heads on crack, they can't even find their way to a charity shop. No, this is middle. There was a piece on BBC Radio 4. I don't always believe everything I hear on Radio 4, but in this case you could, and they were saying that the new wave of people who are going to these food charities and saying, I and my family have nothing to eat, sorry, we need your help. These are young professional people, and people who've run their own businesses successfully for 30 or 40 years, and now it's gone to the wall. This is America's middle class, which is turning up in soup kitchens begging for help. And you know, some of you, how much it takes before someone who's always been proud to earn their own livelihood and keep themselves and their family, how much it takes before that person will finally say, yes, I need help, and beg for charity. It really is something quite astounding, and that's going on there. And it's spreading. Let me give you a brief report from the Bloomberg. You might have seen it if you're flipping through Sky. And you might not bother with the Bloomberg financial program because it's pretty heavy stuff, but it's seriously heavyweight. And there's a piece here just the other day, an article they had headed, Public School, again this is in America, Public School Funds Hit by SIV Debts Hidden in Investment Pools. Now SIV is the financial equivalent of HIV in human health terms. And they're structured investment vehicles, and they're connected to the subprime business. And what the story says briefly is that each state in America, naturally enough, it gets lots of taxes and lots of money. It invests this money so that it's got more money to spend on a rainy day and for pensions for state workers and so on. So naturally enough, this money is invested in what they call state-run pools. And they've all thought, it's wonderful, we've got all this money in government bonds and we're fine. And they just found out they're not. As they discovered that the state-run pools have parked vast amounts of taxpayers' money in some of the most confusing, opaque and illiquid debt investments ever devised. Let's look again at illiquid. Illiquid, that means they've already gone bust. Merrill Lynch, one company alone, has an $8.4 billion write-down. SIVs, here's where you understand how dodgy it is. SIVs are typically offshore companies. Offshore company, right? Created by banks and other firms to sell short-term debt to buy mortgage securities. Selling debt, It's not normal. It's not normal at all. And they finance them. Oh, SIVs collect fees for the banks. Sorry, banks such as Citigroup collect fees for running SIVs while keeping their contents off the bank's books. Da, 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 da. This is a giant global Ponzi scheme. This is a pyramid marketing scam, and Ponzi schemes and the ones like the thing which wrecked the economy of Albania shortly after it came out of a communist shambles. They don't last for very long. This one's lasted a long time because it's based on the greed and the stupidity and the wealth of the American consumer, and it's a pretty big place, it's a pretty big country, but it is a giant pyramid selling scam, and its time is up. I won't even go to the figures. There's just vast amounts, millions upon billions of dollars being destroyed every single day over there by this utter shambles. And if it was only affecting the big companies, you'd think that perhaps their greediest and biggest shareholders, you think, well, so what? Well, here's so what. The Bloomberg continue. Thousands of school, fire, water and other local districts across the US keep their cash in state and county-run pools. These liquid accounts are supposed to invest in safe, liquid, short-term debt, such as US Treasuries. Well, they haven't. They've blown everyone's pension. They've blown their reserves for the next few years. The whole lot is going down the tubes. The state of Montana, for instance, entrusted $465 million, 19% of its total investment pool, to SIVs. And some of the others are in the collateral debt things. So SIV, it's only one bit of it. And yet 20% of their money is in that, and they've lost the whole damn lot. That's just how bad things are. Concludes here, this report. Nobody knows how much more pain is coming. State funds could lose hundreds of millions of dollars, says Lynn Turner, Chief Accountant of the US Securities and Exchange Commission. So they are in deep, deep trouble. And of course, trouble that hits America as a nasty bout of SIV is even worse by the time it gets to this side of the pond. It used to be said if America catches a cold, then we get influenza. Well, what happens to us when America gets financial aids, which is what they've now got? It's going to be much, much worse. We've already begun to see it. Northern Rock, the first run on a British bank in more than 150 years. All of your parents and their parents, not one of them in their lifetime has there been a run on a bank. In fact, it's not even not my parents, not my grandparents, it's their parents and probably their parents. It's 5 generations back since there's been a catastrophe like that in this country, and we've had it. And we're now up to £25 billion of our money has been thrown at keeping Northern Rock propped up. Where's it gone? The thing was only worth, they said, £26 billion when all this happened. So we've almost bought the entire thing, and it's hemorrhaging by billions of pounds at present every week. There's a huge, catastrophic fraud and financial disaster. And we're saying now that obviously how can they say that they can't afford decent housing for poor people in this country? How can they say they can't afford enough wages for staff in hospitals to keep beds open? How can they say they can't afford an NHS deficit of a couple of £100 million a year when they're prepared to throw £25 billion at keeping Northern Rock afloat? There's vast amounts of money. It's starting to cause real problems. If you've seen the Telegraph today, the front page there's one of the best and most up-and-coming officers of the British Army who's just resigned in protest at the way that the government can spend £25 billion of our money bailing out their parasite friends while not having enough equipment or artificial limbs for our soldiers. And you don't have to mark my words for it, but just read the financial pages of the papers over a couple of weeks and you will see the pattern of this spiral, downward spiral, into economic catastrophe, which is going to eliminate most of the middle class of this country. It's going to reduce people to a living standard and a lack of security which The pompous, soft, happy, selfish middle class